Hi, it's me again. I'm Carrie Brothers, again another trainer here at Child Development Resources at the University of Alabama. If you're watching this video, you should have already watched the introduction video and turned in the introduction assignment and also taken the pretest for Module 1. After you finish watching this PowerPoint, there is an assignment, a little video to watch, and there may be some supplementary reading that I may add into it. So be sure that before you go on and take the post-test that you get everything done before then. So we are going to be talking in this module about child development. What is child development? Why is it important for us to know what child development is? What can we expect from children and how they're growing? So I'm going to use PowerPoint for this. Let me open that up and we can start talking through it here. All right. So from the moment of birth, and I would even argue in a lot of ways, from before birth, children are growing and learning in so many ways. The 5 major areas that children learn in, or in which development occurs, are physical, social, emotional, language, and cognitive development. Now, all of these work together. Very, very infrequently will you see just a child using one area. They may use them all together. They may be using a couple of areas of development at the same time. But we need to talk about what each of these areas of development actually means. So first of all, we'll talk about physical development. This basically is just involving the way that children use their large and their small muscles. Okay, so the large muscles are muscles that we use for walking and running and throwing, climbing, and as the children get older, biking, and tricycling and scootering and skateboarding. All of these are large motor development, or what we consider gross motor development. The fine motor development, or the small motor development, involves the small muscles. And these are things that are going to be smaller, I guess, in movement, but not in importance, of course, such as drawing. You're using small hands, or gripping the pencil, gripping of the crayon. That is a small muscle group. We've got the writing, feeding, dressing, brushing teeth. These are all part of what we would say is fine motor development, and that is part of the larger physical motor development. We've also got social motor development, and with social motor development, as you probably can guess, this is referring to how kids are going to be interacting with other people in their lives. Other people being both adults and children, siblings, aunts, uncles. Social skills are very, very important, and some might argue that developing good social skills early on is really, really the most important thing as a child continues on. Social skills are going to include things like sharing, cooperating, and following rules. And as you are teaching in your classroom, you will probably see that a child with well-developed social skills is an easier child in the classroom. And part of our job as teachers or directors or even as parents is to help children develop these social skills. We work with them in teaching them how to interact with other people. Emotional development is very closely tied in with social development. In fact, in some books you'll actually see it classified as social/emotional development as one thing. Here, for the purposes of this course, we're going to separate them. And emotional development includes children's feelings about themselves, their self-esteem, and their ability to express feelings, which is written here. This is important. Kids need to know about themselves. They need to understand what makes them tick. They need to know what they're good at. They need to know that it's okay to have weakness and to ask questions. So this is kind of focusing more on the individual person rather than relationships with outside people. Language development refers to a child's ability to listen, understand, and those in time are eventually going to turn into the ability to read and write, which is part of language development. We don't want to push reading and writing too early on, though, which is, I think, something that we do have a tendency to do. There will actually be an entire module on language development because it is so critical. These early years are so critical in language development, in talking to children, in interacting with children. So we won't say a whole lot more about that now. Cognitive development. Cognition is a word that I never had really heard of until I was maybe 19 or 20 years old. It was a word I learned later on. So it may be a word people taking this course have never actually heard before. Basically, it involves thinking, reasoning, logic, and things like that. It involves forming concepts, remembering ideas, and recognizing objects. Like I said, all 5 of these work very closely with the other. If you have a child who's very high cognitively and very low on with social development, that might be something that you want to look at and help a child, because all 5 of these working together are going to make a well-rounded person, a person who is pleasant to work with, who is eager to learn, and who is eager to move forward, which makes things just better really for everyone. So the question right here is, why should we actually study human growth and development? We are looking specifically at children from birth to 5, but there's time before the child's born, and there's many years after a child turns 5. So why do we study growth and development, and why specifically are we looking at the ages of 0 to 5? Well, as it says here, the knowledge of child growth and development enables us to know behaviors and characteristics and what you can expect with children in different stages. That is important. We need to know what a newborn is capable of, what a 2-year-old is capable of, what is 4-year-old capable of, because we don't want to expect too much or too little of a child at a certain age. We don't want for 2-year-olds necessarily to know their colors or their shapes or their alphabet. At 2 years old, we know kids are just exploring the world and trying to get used to life and trying to figure out things. At 4, they may be more ready. They may be more interested in sitting down and looking at books. Some 4-year-olds may actually be interested in learning how to read. Most 4-year-olds are not. So we, as child care professionals, really need to have a good idea of what is typical, what is average, what is atypical. We also need to know that there are some atypical cases where a child is very much further ahead or a little bit further or a little bit lagging. We need to know this so that we can look at each child individually and help them on their specific level. All right, another reason we should study growth and development is because we want to use this information to help us decide how to set up the room and how to offer children challenging learning opportunities. We are not going to want to put a bunch of Play-Doh out in front of a new baby, a 6-week-old who is sleeping all the time. We need to know that babies at 6 week old need to sleep, and they need to eat, and they need to be held and sung to, and have little bitty books held in front of them, and things like that. But we need to realize, and we also need to realize that Play-Doh is not an appropriate thing to put out for newborns. We know that marbles are not an appropriate thing to put out in front of a bunch of 18-month-old children or 2-year-old children, because those children are still exploring a lot with their mouths. Everything goes in their mouths. We don't want to give them marbles. They may swallow the marbles, okay? And we also need to know that the books that are appropriate to read to newborns are probably going to be way too easy or basic for children who are 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds. So we need to we need to know what those are so that when we are setting up our room, we can have a really, really good idea of what is going to be challenging to kids so that they can continue to learn and be excited about learning. That is what our goal is to make learning exciting for children. And in order to do that, we have got to know what children are capable of. And above all, like the third point says here, a foundation in child development will help us answer the most important question: what is best for the children? What is best for the children as a group? And what is best for the individual child? It's going to be different in a lot of cases. All right, so some interesting things we need to know about child development. One is that development follows predictable patterns. Babies are going to be able to roll over before they are sitting up. They're going to be sitting up before they're crawling. They're going to be crawling before they're walking. And they're going to be walking before they're running. That's just some physical development. Same things go with emotional, language, social, and cognitive. Development follows specific patterns, predictable patterns. In addition, children are going to grow from in out, and they are going to just grow in different ways, very specific ways, very predictable patterns. Number 2 here, or the second bullet here, is that there are large differences in the rate at which children develop. Like I said earlier, on the last slide, there's a very wide range of what normal is or what typical is. So even though you may have 2 kids that are the same chronological age, they may both be 3 years and 2 months old, their level of knowledge and skills may vary widely. This can be for different reasons. This can be because of, it could be gender. Sometimes boys develop faster in some things and girls develop faster in other things. It could be because of their home life and what's going on at home and what they're exposed to at home. It could be something as simple as they're just different people and they are made to develop differently. All right, this third point here is actually one that I accidentally started touching on that first point with predictable patterns, but what this one in here is development proceeds from simple to complex. Each skill is built on a simpler one until the child learns more refined skills and concepts. Okay, so if you look at a new baby, okay, they're just going to be kind of randomly throwing their arms around when they're awake. At around 6 or so weeks, they're going to be purposely swatting things. I have 3 daughters. My oldest just turned 12 and my youngest will be 8 soon as of this recording. And I remember when my oldest, and my middle one is almost 10 as of this recording. And I remember when my oldest one was 6 weeks old, seeing her for the very first time in the car. You know, she was buckled in her little car seat in the car, and something was dangling down off of her car seat. And I remember her looking at it and swatting at it. She wasn't grabbing for it, but she was swatting. She was trying to help get it to move. She was trying to see, what she could do. Eventually that turned into grabbing. When that grabbing happened, eventually that turned into manipulating with her hand. Okay, those things built on each other. She didn't go directly from laying in my arms doing nothing to grabbing and manipulating things. There was a series of stages, and each one of those built on something else to make the final thing more complex. And this continues all through childhood. This same child now is in school doing well, writing, reading, playing soccer, all of these things. It had to start off with something very simple, very, very early on in her life. Okay, this fourth concept here, or this fourth principle here, is learning proceeds from the concrete to abstract. Children need real-life experiences interacting with concrete objects in order to construct knowledge. If they have never experienced something before, they're not going to really know what you're talking about. They need to, they're very concrete. They need to be able to touch things and experience things before they can learn. I think a classic example that a lot of teachers do in the classroom, a trap that I fell into, honestly, also was early on when I had, a bunch of 4-year-olds, doing a a unit on snow. Okay, when they're 4 years old in Alabama, there's a good chance that they have never experienced snow before. They've seen it on TV, they've heard their parents talk about it, but they've never actually experienced it themselves. The best time to maybe talk about snow would be after their first snowfall. That would be a great time to talk about it, whether it was at school or over the weekend or over Christmas break. They've experienced it and they can really have a good understanding of what snow is, and they're building their knowledge base. Another thing people do, I've seen a lot in the classroom, and I don't mean to sound overly critical here, it's just these things continue to occur to me, is and another thing in regards to the weather, as soon as fall hits, September 22nd, September 23rd, everyone goes into fall mode. They start doing units on changing colors of the leaves, which is great. Probably that would be more appropriate for a classroom of 3 and 4 year olds a month later in October, or maybe even early November, because we all know that in Alabama on September 23rd it does not feel like fall and the leaves are not changing color yet, not very much anyway. So these kids, we need to think about what they know, because it's only when they know something can they really and truly build on their knowledge base. All right, this fifth one here, development cannot be taught or hurried. If children are forced to perform beyond their abilities, it very well could cause damage to their self-concept or negative attitudes about school. We so many times as teachers, because of what society expects, are pushing kids to learn how to read so much earlier than what they're expecting or what they are capable of. They might actually be able to be taught how to read at 4 years old, but it's not where they are developmentally, and we're doing damage if we're pushing that early on. We need to be looking at them and what they're capable of as individuals. We do not want kids going into school already hating school by the time they're 5 years old. We need to be giving them experiences where they can learn on their own. Okay, the sixth one here, children have different styles of learning as well as different interests, needs, and motivations. Y'all, they're so much like adults, it's not even funny. We all the time are talking about how we have this type of personality or this type of personality or this type of learning style or this type of learning style. I'm visual, I'm audio, I'm audible, or I hear things, or I learn this way or I learn that way. Kids are like that too. I forget this honestly when I'm dealing with my own children, is that they're not going to all learn the same way, and they're certainly not going to all learn the way I learn. And so, we as child care professionals and as parents, even if any of you are parents, have got to realize that children do learn different ways, and we need to be looking out for how they learn best. Are they more visual? Do they learn better by hearing? Are they more kinesthetic? Do they need to have their hands on things? Probably most people are going to require some combination of all of these. All right, the seventh thing here, all areas of development are interwoven. It's important to develop a well-rounded child with experience in all domains. Okay, we need to always have experiences out in the physical and social, emotional, all of these things, because we want this child to be well-rounded. All right, this next one here, when you understand how children think and behave at different ages, you'll better know how to guide them, protect them, motivate them, provide the most valuable learning experiences around them. Knowledge is power here, okay? This little module is covering just a very, very brief overview. But I think that we all know really more than what we think we know. We need to go on our gut feeling. We need to be looking at the kids. And when we understand that, when we understand the kids, we are going to be able to provide a much better learning experience for them. Whether there's a lot of money and funding in your center or not, the more knowledge we have, regardless of how much money we have to put into materials and stuff, the more knowledge we have, the better teachers, the better directors we're going to be. An understanding of child development is also going to improve our confidence and we'll be able to adjust our classroom to the individual needs of the children. All right, so we have like a little activity here, and this is a little bit challenging because this is on video and not here. We're not here together, so I'm going to do the best I can kind of illustrating this. All right, say that you gave your child or a child in your classroom or all the kids in your classroom a activity, this apple activity. Okay, you've got a color sheet here, cute little apple. Okay, so what are you expecting the kids to do from this? You're expecting them to sit down and color this part here in the middle red and then the leaf green, right? Okay, so look at that and compare it to this. I'm going to try to pull up a video here on YouTube, if I can get it over here. All right, this is just a video of a man cutting an apple, and I'll just show part of it here.
To start, turn your apples upside down. You can see the tops have a lot more surface area than the bottoms, so by putting them face down, they'll be a lot more stable when you cut them, meaning less chance you cut yourself instead. Next, rather than cutting an apple into quarters, which you're probably taught to do, imagine a tic-tac-toe pattern with the center of the grid lining up with the middle of the apple. Cut along these imaginary lines, holding the pieces together firmly at the top as you do, and just like that, your fruit snack is completely sliced and ready to eat. The cool thing about this method is that by keeping the pieces together, it'll actually stay good for a surprising amount of time. I opened this one 3 hours later, and you can see it's still in really great shape and ready to be eaten. So think about this. The next time you're packing a lunch, try snapping a rubber band around the outside, and you'll have a healthy snack ready to go in an instant.
All right, so what you saw there was a man cutting an apple, okay? I don't even really know what he was going to end up doing with the apple. I don't know the point of the whole video. My point in that is that how much can the kids learn in cutting an apple up or watching you cut an apple up, versus having a coloring sheet here. With a coloring sheet, they're learning they have to sit down and color in the lines and make it look a certain way. If they're actually experiencing an apple, they get to hold the apple, they get to smell the apple, they get to watch you cut the apple, they get to hear the apple, kind of crunch as it falls apart. They get to taste the apple. They can compare different types of apples and the way they taste. Even the guy here was talking about with his method of cutting apples, that how they are going to stay, it's not going to oxidize, it's not going to turn brown if you hold it together. You can do an experiment with, let's keep the one apple together and another apple, let the pieces fall apart. The kids are going to have so much more fun learning through watching you and through experiencing an apple itself than coloring a coloring sheet. They can look at the seeds. You can talk about the life cycle of an apple tree, how the apples grow. You can talk about the apple blooms or the apple buds that come before the apples even start growing. You can get some great pictures to look at, and then culminate it all with the cutting of an apple. Maybe even you could turn this into a cooking activity. This could be a huge thing, and the kids would have so much fun with it, and they would love it. And it really would cost very little. It would be a great experience for them, though. So how do kids learn? Okay, and we hit on some of this with this apple activity. They learn through play. They learn by doing. They learn through their senses, through language, through moving, through imitation, through repetition, through experimenting, through exposure, and through interacting with friends. They learn a lot. Okay? Just by experiencing things, by the way they're made. This is the way kids are supposed to learn. They're supposed to move. They're supposed to talk a lot. They're supposed to smell and feel. They're supposed to be exposed to things. And so we need to know these things as teachers so that we can go in and help the kids as they're growing and learning. All right, some benefits of play here. Children who are permitted to play freely with peers develop skills for seeing things from another person's point of view. All right, so here we're talking about both social development and emotional development. They have to understand how they would feel in different situations to understand how other people are going to feel in different situations, so they know how to treat people. Play is good. When you have things so structured in the classroom that the kids are not able to play, they're not able to interact with each other, you're really not doing the kids any favors. You're keeping them safe, yes, and that is huge. But you can keep them very safe and also let them play and develop some of these social skills that are imperative for the rest of their childhood and really the rest of their life. Another point here is the development of children's perceptual abilities really may suffer when so much of their experience is through television, computers, books, worksheets, and other media that require only 2 senses. Remember, we're trying to bring in as many of these senses as we can. We want them to learn, like with the apple, through feeling the apple, through smelling the apple, through hearing the apple, through talking about the apple. Experiencing this apple in so many ways is really going to increase what they know about apples, and it's going to be more fun. We want them to enjoy learning. We want them to enjoy learning, and they're just not going to when you're drilling them on facts and doing worksheets with them all the time. We also want a child's self-esteem to build as they grow, or we want it to remain good. I think most children naturally feel very good and confident about themselves, but we want them to continue to feel this way. We want them to know that they are important people. We don't want them to become egocentric. We don't want that. But we do want them to know that they are valuable and they are valued by us and by parents and by society. So we do want to reward kids. Point out the good they do. Don't dwell on the bad. When I say reward, I don't necessarily mean giving them an M&M every time they do something well, but just notice things and show them that you notice things. Let them know that it's okay to fail. It's great to succeed, and it's okay to fail, because failing is how we learn. Tell them maybe about if they're particularly discouraged about somewhere where they failed, point out to them or let them know about a time where you really failed doing something. Use encouraging phrases here. Thanks for helping. You're so special. I'm proud of you. That's huge. Have reasonable expectations, and we talked about this earlier. Know what kids are capable of, and don't expect too much too soon. We don't want to ever make fun of children or put down children. Okay, if they're whiny, don't, and they will be whiny, don't mock their whininess. I have sadly done this before from time to time, and I do it in my own house, and it's just not good for kids. It's not good for kids. We don't want them to be afraid of telling you how they feel. Whining is not appropriate, but we need to teach them how to talk about their feelings in a respectful way. Discuss problems without putting blame on anyone, and setting limits and rules is very important. In a lot of these trainings, we're talking about giving kids freedom, letting them have freedom, because that's how they learn. And it's true. You have to keep the kids safe. And kids are not going to learn when you give them, no rules at all. There need to be standards that have to be kept. But there needs to be a lot of freedom within those boundaries. We also need to know, wise people know when sometimes rules need to be flexed, when they need to be bent a little bit. Be a good role model. Show kids how to do things. They love you. They love adults. They want to copy what you're doing. And don't let children hear you say bad things about yourself. If you don't feel good about the way you look, first of all, you probably look much better than you think you do. But second of all, when they continue to hear adults talk about how they look, how they're too big or too small, or I hate my haircut, or whatever, they're going to start feeling that way. Let them know that you respect yourself, and in turn they will respect themselves. Give children responsibility. They are capable of a lot. It may be slower than you want it, but that is part of the learning process for them. Let children make choices. Let them make decisions. Include their opinions and decisions along with yours. You do have to make the final call, but really consider what they have to say, because they are important. Be available, support kids, and just let them know that you think they're great. Physical affection is in the form of love and hugs in the classroom is really a good thing. If they seem hesitant towards physical affection, kind of read their cues, but in general, they love hugs. Give them to them. They need them. So that is the end of this module on child development, and we'll continue on through the following modules. Be sure that you do your assignment and any other reading material that I may post before you take the post test, and then after you're finished with that, you may go on and continue with the next module. Again, if you have any questions or anything, be sure to email me. My email address is on the syllabus, kbrothers@ches.ua.edu, and my phone number is 348-0682. Thanks, guys.